Give me a U. Give me a C. Give me a K. What's that spell? 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 Well, come on, all of you big strong men. Uncle Sam needs your help again. Got himself in a terrible jam way down yonder in Vietnam. Put down your books and pick up a gun. We're gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. We're all gonna die. Now come on, Wall Street, don't be slow. Why, man, this is war a go-go. There's plenty good money to be made, supplying the army with the tools of the trade. Just hope and pray that if they drop the bomb, they drop it on the Viet Cong. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, ain't no time to wonder why. We're all gonna die. Now come on, generals, let's move fast. Your big chance is here at last. Now you can go out and get those reds, cause the only good commie is one that's dead. And you know that peace can only be won when you've blown them all, the kingdom comes. Sing it! 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, don't give a damn. Louder! Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up pearly gates. Well, I ain't no time to wonder why. Listen, people, I don't know how you expect to ever stop the war if you can't sing any better than that. There's about 300,000 of you fuckers out there. I want you to start singing. Come on. And it's 1, 2, 3.
I don't think the CIA was excited to see all of these guys.
The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, I ain't no time to wonder why. We're all gonna die. Now come on, mothers throughout the land. Pack your boys off to Vietnam. Come on, fathers, don't hesitate. The send your sons off before it's too late. Be the first one on your block. Have your boy come home in a box. All right. 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up pearly gates. Well, I ain't no time to wonder why. We're all gonna die. All right.
All right, we are live, comrades. That was Country Joe of Country Joe and the Fish. Just died just now. And I thought one funny trivia about Country Joe is that he had communist parents and they named him after Joseph Stalin. So that's why his name is Country Joe.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I did not know that until a few years ago. So I always thought that was an interesting link between like the old left and the new left right there.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, we are in week 2 of this war. It's this absolute insanity that has been brought upon us by Israel and Donald Trump. There's been talk of ground troops potentially. Donald Trump has even floated the idea of bringing back the draft. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet.
Yeah.
So, I honestly, the Vietnam comparison obviously comes to mind when you hear that kind of news.
What's the joke? I'd rather I'll serve crack before I serve this country.
Yeah.
Very much how I feel.
And I mean, it's very like Zionism is very much the omni cause, like Vietnam was back then. Like it,
I know,
all of the worst shit is wrapped up in this.
I know, like Palestine is this omni cause. Like every leftist, they want to make everything about Palestine, but it's like, well,
it is.
It is the thing that's combining everything, and everything kind of folds into, and it's how you make sense of everything, just like Vietnam was in the past. And
it's having a similar effect on the left, albeit in like a more muted way, where like the 60s and 70s, I think was like the peak in terms of left intellectual production, or one of the peaks of the previous century. And for years, and I'm sure you guys noticed this, like there was just so much slop being put out like in the contemporary left, and but like because of the severity of this crisis, like people are like, we can't fucking settle with bullshit anymore. Like we need real answers to understand what's happening, and that's like why a lot of interesting stuff is now happening. Although unfortunately, we don't have the mobilization that they did back then to actually fight the Omni cause.
Yeah. Well, I was going to start off with a different question, but I think maybe one thing is to bring up is just why are we not seeing the same level of mobilization already? I mean, maybe we will down the line, but it's just taking time.
Well, I mean, I don't think there was like that much mobilization in the beginning of Vietnam either. Like when I
Right.
first properly entered the war in early '60s, because it just wasn't a problem for Americans. Like they're still riding high off of the post-war boom, things are going well. But as American GIs kept like dying, kept coming back in body bags, the thing.
Hold on, I'm messing with this.
Yeah, I was confused. Yeah, like as the war became more and more of a meat grinder, people, and as it became more and more clearly wrapped up in everything awful in America, like the reaction to the civil rights movement, all this shit. More and more stuff, like more and more people started coming out, and the reason, again, like we're sort of seeing that in muted form, but like on a longer duration, or I guess maybe not a longer duration, but like a similar duration as then, where you have this initial mobilization in response to the genocide, like the first year-ish.
Right.
And like that was pretty good in terms of like raising mass consciousness and like keeping this at the time controversial issue in the public eye. And then as it's become more like the function of protest has like sort of shifted, and it's clearly not doing anything to stop this. So people have become demoralized on that, is my sense. And it's also lost kind of its function as like a consciousness raising thing, because at least like within the broad, very vaguely defined left, meaning the Democratic Party. I mean, of course, not actually left, but like, as Americans would put it. Most Democrats, most normie liberals view this as a genocide and are appalled by what's going on. And are slowly but surely linking it with everything that fucking sucks in this country. I think we'll begin to see mobilization against this current aggression against Iran once, if and when economic suffering really starts to kick in, because it hasn't even been a full 2 weeks yet.
Right.
But I think like within a month, probably, like once people notice that gas prices have really jumped, and inevitably, like maybe not groceries, but like other just common items have become more expensive. And just a lot of other things are going wrong. People will be like, okay, this isn't good. Why are we doing the Iraq war again, but way worse and way more destructive? So I guess in that sense, we have to wait, although it's like a very frustrating and angering answer that people are not outraged just by the sheer barbarity of this.
Right.
What can you expect from this country? It's fucking deranged.
Yeah, like I saw firsthand the protest fatigue around Gaza because people in my local community that were coming to protest, I was helping organize and stuff, they just kind of lost interest in coming to protest, because it just didn't seem to be doing anything.
Yeah.
And I can't really blame them,
It's the whole protest form. Like, that's the fundamental criticism of it, and especially like of organizations that really rely on it, which is like, I mean, we can do protests, we can hold hands and sing kumbaya, but like what is it meaning, like materially doing? Like jack shit. They don't care about public opinion. They don't give a fuck. Like worst case, they'll bring on the cops, and if that doesn't work, they'll bring on literal fascisti squads to beat the shit out of protesters, like they did with the student movement. That is still for me like one of the most, I don't want to say traumatic, because like I wasn't hit by beaten up by fascists, but just watching it was genuinely horrifying on a level.
Yes.
Very few events in this country have like unsettled me like that. To see the Columbia and UCLA protests put down in such an extreme manner.
Especially at UCLA, it seemed like there really was like vigilante kind of gangs.
Yeah.
Started hitting people with like metal poles and stuff like that, or
They were like, you had literal fascisti, like people financed by millionaire Zionists to go in and launch fireworks into fucking the student camps. Like, and some of the stuff that they did was beyond parody. Like, they released fucking infected rats, no word of a lie, into the camp. Like, this is just beyond. It is a fucking living stereotype of like the most insane medieval tropes.
Yeah,
we were talking about, you know, peasant brain last week, but this is like medieval siege tactics, like launching infected rats.
no wonder people have peasant brain, man.
So now we have feudal lord brain as well.
Yeah,
but, you know, I have to push back a little. I think that it's a bit of an overgeneralization to say that, you know, protests never do anything, et cetera, and it's always contextual. The thing is that if protests really didn't matter, then why would states crack down on them? And there's a reason, right? Of course, it's once again, it's contextual, it's complex, but people having confidence in expressing criticism of Israel is a novelty in this country.
for
And
sure.
part of it does owe to the fact that so many people were willing to go out in public and oppose it, right? I mean, I think that that's not trivial.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not that means we can actually dictate states of affairs when it comes to the executive capacities of the state, no, like it doesn't, right? But the symbolism of so many people going out and publicly affirming their support with Palestine, that's a novelty, and it's made people more confident in expressing this criticism in public. So it's not enough, and clearly it didn't stop anything, but it is important.
Yeah.
It is demoralizing, but at the same time, we do have to remember that it is important. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Like I would obviously, like, even if they don't do anything, I would much rather there be protests than none, as we're seeing right now.
What's so depressing is how it's just died out.
Yeah, like people can't even do the kumbaya thing
because they're demoralized. It's like we were saying. They're just people in this country are just so demoralized.
It's a fucking very bleak time, and like this comment that you have on the screen is really, it ties in perfectly with the broader context of it. Like if you looked at a lot of the names of the fascisti goons who put down the UCLA camp, they were Persian Zionists, like Persian Jews and Persians in LA who are just fucking freaks. And that's, I think, like a good pivot into
the Gustavo Olympics. In the Gustavo Olympics, it's not clear who wins.
It's so, I think I will say though, like Persians are, or they have been, way overplaying their hand. Like they've fulfilled their function of manufacturing some consent, such as it is for this war, but they're not like Israelis. They are not Jews, where they have this like sort of special caste status.
Yes,
anti-Semitism aside, like they're like, the U.S. does not give a fuck about Persians like as a group. There's no special lobby group that's like out there pushing their shit, and they're toxifying their image in a way that I think will actually have real deal consequences. Maybe not in this year, but definitely long term, or maybe you will this year, given how fucking fast this shit is moving. And I mean, in general, they're basically behaving like Zionist Jews, but without the actual sort of special protection.
Right. They don't have like the same level of civil society and the same ideological sympathy within the American public.
Yeah, like, I mean, just anecdotally, two people just from my family. My mom, during the height of like the Iranian protests, just said she didn't like Pahlavi because he just looked like a stupid brown dictator. And my sister said she did, like, she was like, who was like a very, you know, Beltway lib, was like, I don't like these Persians. They just fucking behave like stupid immigrants. And she is an immigrant herself. And like now multiply that by however many people in this country. Like this is not the move. But yeah, I think that's a good pivot to the next, like the main topic of this discussion, which is how did we get to this? And that's a two-part answer. First of which is the Zionist parasite, which I've like discussed before.
Yes, we've discussed this many times.
But I'll give like a very brief, the spark notes of it, for all the younger Zoomers who don't even know what that is. But basically, there's a Zionist parastate. It emerges over the course of Zionist relations, even before Israel, with great powers. Like it begins with Herzl. He wasn't especially successful, but he sets up this precedent of we need to rely on great powers. But the key point is that a lot of Marxists historically, they emphasized Israel's alliance with Western imperialism as its most essential trait, which is not true. This was an instrumental, although there was a lot of isomorphism in how they viewed the rest of the world, and therefore like they would be natural allies. But Zionist relations with great powers were first and foremost about how these great powers could facilitate and support the Zionist project, which is settler colonialism. The essence of Zionism is Jewish settler colonialism in the Levant, and in particular Palestine. So if there ever was a moment where a great power was not supporting that goal as fervently as the Zionists supported, they would flip. And we saw this many, many times throughout the 20th century. They first tried, getting lobbying from the Germans. That failed. Then they pivot to the Brits. And the Brits, they actually find a pretty solid ally for about 20 years, from the Balfour Declaration to the late 30s. In 1939, they issue a white paper, basically very severely limiting Jewish immigration, because that's when the British government realizes this is actually a pretty big fucking mess that we need to get under control. Even if there was a lot of ideological sympathy with Zionism, they just knew, as an imperial hegemon, this is going to cause problems, and it already is causing problems. We just had the Arab Revolt of 1936 to 39. We don't want another one of those. The Zionists, they're outraged by this. They begin an insurgency. They flip on the British, and in 1948, when the so-called UN partition plan is supposed to happen, they very temporarily ally with the Soviet Union and East Bloc, which foolishly thinks that they could be like a pro-Soviet state in the Middle East. With this alliance, they get the weaponry to actually orchestrate the Nakba. Then they flip on the East Bloc, and then they turn mainly to France. And then another solid ally for about 20 years. 1967 war, this is when America starts paying attention to them, and they become friends with America. And they realize that there's no better alternative than America. This is it. So we need to make sure that this alliance stays on forever. And what that means in practice is that we need to make sure that America never, ever comes to the conclusion that all the other great powers did, which is that we are causing too many problems for their grand projects. We need to make sure that America is ideologically bought into this. And from there emerges the Israel lobby. Again, really oversimplifying, the origins of this go back deeper, but that's basically, in this country, we can call that the origins of it. The Israel lobby forms, and it's initially just like a pressure group, like any other, but it becomes really sophisticated. It expands throughout the American establishment. It starts spreading throughout the American establishment, but it's still, under like the purview of the American hegemonic project. At this point, this is like when the aircraft carrier analogy is really most appropriate. That's like Reagan's national or Secretary of State said that. And Reagan was a fervent Zionist himself, but at the same time, he was willing to tell Israel, no more when things got a bit too far, like what they were doing in Lebanon, for instance.
Right.
Then, Reagan's out, 1990s begin, Oslo Accords, very earliest signs of GWAT. This is like when the aircraft carrier starts turning into the Zionist parastate, like in the form we recognize it. And I think GWAT is the most essential piece of this transformation, because it's the end of history, unipolarity. There's no longer political or ideological opposition to the U.S. in the Western frame of mind, because communism, as much as they hated communists, they still had to admit that this is an ideology. This is a political movement with a real political aims. But after the fall of communism, any opposition to America and Western liberalism is just barbarism. This is like where the whole concept of terrorism really starts to enter like the American state and like American society. Maybe not to a huge extent, but like it starts permeating. Especially in like the example I cite in my article is the Black Hawk Down, Battle of Mogadishu in the 1990s, where the real political history and like actual demands, which is the Somali people are not fans of American invaders, naturally, that's pushed aside and it turned into this really grotesque, like racialized idea of like white civilization versus black barbarism, with the film Black Hawk Down. Then 2001, 9/11 happens, and this is like the real turning point where GWOT begins, and what essentially like what GWOT in essence is the Zionist worldview turned into the global, like the American global hegemonic project, where any sort of opposition, any sort of political or ideological opposition is terrorism, and it's therefore, beyond the realms of civilization. It can no longer be treated as a party to war. It's an affront to society. Can only be treated as a policing matter. Hence, the focus, like when the FBI starts putting out most wanted terrorist lists. Like on the one hand, like they are terrorists, like literally, but that's a weird way to frame what these guys are doing. Like this isn't just terror for its own sake. There's like a specific political goal here, and like you can't mention that. And this is like the Zionist frame. Like that's how they justify the invasion of Lebanon.
This idea of terrorism is like itself an ideology and a worldview, rather than a tactic that practically everyone uses in conflict.
Like I mean, like the Brits, like many Tories in Britain really despise the Israelis because they viewed them as terrorists. Like there's that funny title that the Queen thought every Israeli leader was a terrorist or the son of a terrorist. So like this is, and this comment on the screen like really puts it well. Like, Netanyahu, like Israel is really in the heart of creating this GWOT ideology going back to the 80s. Like you can see videos of him talking about this shit in like through the 90s and then especially in the 2000s. And the net result of like 20 years of GWOT is that you have this massive imperial machine, especially in the US, but across the West, that essentially believes in Zionism like to core. It's maybe not in those exact terms, but like there's a remarkable isomorphism between GWOT ideology and Zionism. Then this culminates with then there's like another turning point, which is like the Obama administration, where Obama, he was still super pro-Israel, but there were a couple moments where I remember him really pissing off Israel, which is he abstained on one vote instead of vetoing it, as was American custom. And I think there was some, and the JCPOA, and then also just like their fucking like ghoulish, just like straight up anti-black racism. They're like, okay, we need to make sure that we never get another like pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist scumbag like Obama in office again. So we need to get Donald Trump. And Trump is like the Likud in so many ways.
I know. I've been saying this for a long time, but really, to understand Donald Trump, you have to see him as basically like the American wing of the Likud party.
Pretty much, yeah.
Gus makes a point here that Obama also did try to go after settlements, and Biden sabotaged it.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, and I think like I read that basically Biden was Netanyahu's guy in Obama's administration.
That's crazy, and they still talk so much shit about Biden.
I know, it's so stupid because Biden pretty much did everything they wanted, and they still acted like he was like sabotaging their war effort. But
all right, man, whatever. So we get Trump, who is American Likud, and that ends up like Likudifying the GOP. Again, I'm oversimplifying. The GOP, was obviously like super Likudified in general, but you guys get what I mean. We get the Biden regime, and Biden just like fucking is a product of the Israel lobby and like ultimately the Zionist parastate. Like his brain is completely devoted to this. He fanatically believes in this genocidal project in its most hideous form. But the Israelis, they didn't like the mere fact that he was like friendly with Obama. And from there, they supported American Likud, Trump again. And now we're at the most insanely just zogged up administration in American history.
Yep. It's like we had, the Republicans had the neocons who were pretty much dedicated to Israeli security by any means necessary, and understanding Israeli security as well. They need the settlements, they need to be able to go to war and do all the war crimes they want. But in the end, they understood it in terms of Israeli security. Whereas like Trump has like surrounded himself with these Chabad Lubavitch guys who
Yeah.
like they don't see it, and they see it in terms of like the settlements are holy enterprise, and we need to rebuild a third temple. Like, this is actually a messianic journey for us to partake in. This is not just about Israeli security and building a world order where Israel can be secure and we can wage the global war on terror. This is really, they fully have embraced this ideology of Jewish supremacy and
Yeah.
messianic Zionism.
It is very much. I mean, now the Israel is Jewish ISIS comparison, like that's become like more common. It very much is. It has the same sort of messianic, apocalyptic mindset of like we can just fucking take over the world, and everybody else is a subhuman. So that's the historical context of how we got to this moment. Then the actual particulars, the chain of events begin, like the true chain of events begins in October 7th, where, and I've discussed this before, where essentially, like the Gaza Hamas branch, they realize that time is ticking on the Palestinian question, and it's in very, very severe danger of dying. So like, okay, we need to, and we can't wait any longer on the Axis to begin their showdown. We don't even know if it'll happen, based off of their messaging at the time, which is very passive, very, sort of speaking of it as like as a distant project. And like Palestine did not have that time. So what Hamas did, in particular, Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Deif, and Marwan Issa, what they do is they shift the strategic center of the axis of resistance, such as it is, from Tehran to Gaza by the October 7th operation. And this sort of reverses the proxy-patron relationship. If that analysis could ever even describe the Iran-Hamas relationship. They're like, okay, we're now in the driver's seat. We're initiating the action. You now need to you either play along or you get run over. And Iran very immediately distanced themselves from it. They're like, we had no idea about this. We want nothing to do with it. Hezbollah, they create their support front on October 8th. In Yemen, they open their support front about 3 or 4 weeks later, after October 7th. This begins like the first phase, or the first year or so, where you have these support fronts. Iran is not involved, and Iran's like really trying. Basically, Iran's like strategy at this point is hope that this mess can fucking end, and they can go back to negotiating with the U.S. and get another JCPOA. That is their primary goal, which like goes back to like from the death of Khomeini, where like the Iranian, the IRI elite, they view normalization with the West as in the existential interest of Iran. And like the difference between the reformists and the principalists fundamentally is down to a different strategy of how to do it. So that is still informing their logic post October 7th. They're hoping that like so many people, including many of the left, myself as well, but we can end this and return to a pre-October 7th world, although definitely very changed. I think very few people really recognized at the time that this has completely changed the world. Most people, I think most sharp people were able to see this has really changed the world, but like change still means that there's like something of the pre-war society that's still there. Like this is a completely different political frame that we're operating in. So anyway, and like Iran's leadership just did not recognize that, or did not want to. But clearly, I really do believe that the aim of October 7th was to ignite a total regional war and drag Iran's feet into the final showdown with Israel. They were able to avoid that until the 12-Day War. The 12-Day War really culminated on Israeli momentum and successes against the Axis. They from the beginning of the war in Lebanon in September until the 12-Day War, they just kept mounting really major successes against the Axis, except against Yemen. Yemen really held strong throughout it all. Now, the 12-Day War, that begins, it was in the midst of negotiations, like when Iran really thought that they would get another JCPOA. And I think that I honestly think that was the darkest period. We had fucking even discussed this at the time, that Iran was trying to cut a deal while Gaza was like entering full scale famine. This is really grim. Like what's going to happen? 12-day war happens. It really, really shakes up the IRI clearly, and they managed to get on their feet after the first like really chaotic 24 hours, 24 36 hours. And they hit back pretty hard. They're actually able to make the Israelis and the Americans back off. Then, now that sets off like another, the most proximate chain of events, which is what the Israelis were doing. I think since then there's been reporting confirming that the negotiations were, at least in the last stretch, were a ruse, and that the Americans and Israel had always been coordinating to sabotage it, which I think shows just how much the U.S. is captured by fucking Zionist interests, because Iran was willing to give up a lot to essentially sell off Gaza and more distantly the Axis for a deal with the U.S. in such a dark time, and the U.S. didn't take that deal, even though it would totally be in American strategic interest to do that. But Israel was not satisfied with that, so they were like, okay, we need to fight. They fight, and from there, that sets off like a chain of events where if there was any confusion, if there was any disagreement between the two partners, Israel and the U.S., those would be bridged from this chain of events. Over time, Trump would begin to absorb the Netanyahu's position, maximalist position, that we need to fucking go for everything. We need total regime change. We need to destroy the Axis. We need to destroy the missiles, all of it. And that's what it was reported yesterday, that fucking Lindsey Graham was groomed, was coaching Netanyahu on how to lobby for this war. So that's what was happening on stateside in the intervening months. Then on the Iranian side, they realized, okay, we can't negotiate with these people. This is we've been duped too many times. We can't keep doing this. And they're really going for, they want to get rid of us completely. This is no longer just about weakening us. They want to eliminate the IRA. So, a few more months of bullshit negotiations go on. Iran is making serious preparations to withstand another war. And this is when, we first got inklings of what Arevchi, he calls it mosaic, decentralized mosaic defense. Essentially where the chain of command no longer goes to the very center. You have these kind of independent, semi-independent zones that are able to operate in without direct input from the top. We saw signs of that from reporting, Financial Times reported that the IRA had really thickened up its chain of command, so that if there would be replacements to the fourth or fifth line, showing that they really believed, they finally recognized the threat that they were facing. Then this moment comes up where there's this final round of so-called negotiations, and the U.S. is assembling this giant armada, and clearly, I'm going to assume that Iran was also making its own major defenses in this time, as they see the writing on the wall. The U.S., asked for another set of ridiculous demands. Iran naturally rejects it, and that's what begins the war. And this is what
were the demands? I mean, it was something I know one of the egregious demands was that they forfeit all ballistic missiles or something like that.
That was one of them.
That they completely eliminate their missile program, which is just what
the fuck?
It's what?
It this basic element of national self-defense, you can't have that. And then it was it was the three,
you can't have AK-47s. What kind of it's not a demand.
It's asking for war. The three core demands were the elimination of the nuclear program, even more than the terms that they were demanding previously, the elimination of the ballistic missiles program, and all support to the Axis. It was in fact, it was basically the grand bargain from 2003 when Iran offered all that stuff before, but the bargain was that America would stop regime change and grant sanctions relief and like economically, normalize with the IRI. That it was supposed to be a trade. This was not a trade. America was saying, you give us everything and we maybe don't kill you. Emphasis on the maybe.
Yeah.
So
it was just pure. It was no real diplomacy. It was just gangsterism.
Yeah. It was obscene. So like there was this fucking 2-month long preparation of bringing in all this shit from who knows where to the Middle East, and then they launched the attack, and now we're in this totally insane world where oil has just reached $100 a barrel, and Marco Rubio the other day said, we knew Israel was going to attack, and that would put American soldiers in danger, so we decided to attack, first. Which is so, like, instead of just addressing the root cause, which is you tell Israel don't attack so that our boys don't get hit, they're like, oh, no, we're going to make sure that we're going to put them in the front line. Like,
yeah,
right,
I honestly think that American ground troops are going to be deployed too, because the way they're talking about it, it really seems like they're warming everyone up for it.
No, yeah, for sure. I think they'll begin with like special ops or like whatever, special forces in quotes, commandos. There are a couple talks of this, which is, and I guess now we can shift the conversation to the actual war itself. And since we're already on the ground troops discussion, the two things that have come up most in reporting are sending in troops, commandos, to get the nuclear enriched uranium, and sending in commandos to take Harg Island, which is one of the main oil-producing regions of Iran. I think one interesting theory that I heard from someone was that the Harg talk may in fact be like a red herring to distract the Iranians, so the Americans can send commandos to take the enriched uranium, which I could believe that they've definitely been done similar stuff like that in the past, but at the same time I don't know. But if they do send in commandos, I think that's going to be a major, that'll be a huge escalation, and it'll lead to a very strong response. And that's now we can get into the discussion about how has this war been going for the past 10-ish days. But before I do that, let's pause a bit. Is there anything unclear so far?
Let's look at what's going on in that chat over here.
Good.
So it says, if anything, Kilgore crowds over. If anything, U.S. probably could have strung out negotiation, get assets in place, or if Iran doesn't capitulate instantly. Clearly didn't seem to seriously consider that.
Yeah, this whole thing seems so weirdly haphazard. Like, although there was all this, planning about like bringing in assets, but they don't seem to have a real proper plan. It's just, let's just bomb them until they give up, which, I mean.
Right, and that's why I'm skeptical. Like, you mentioned that they might send in commandos to get the enriched uranium. Like, it just seems like they just want to destroy the place. Like, that almost seems too strategic and too targeted for what they're doing.
Yeah, it's very.
Maybe I'm underestimating how smart they are. I'm just assuming that our enemies are just the dumbest people and have no real plan. But
I think the Israelis probably want to get the enriched uranium, but at the same time, they also do want to transplant the Gaza playbook to Iran. Like, they just started bombing energy infrastructure in Tehran, and it's created literally apocalyptic scenes. Like the fucking sun is blocked out by these oil clouds.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, there's been there's basically just toxic clouds over Tehran, and if it rains, basically all of those toxic elements, it rains those toxic elements. So you basically have acid or toxic rain.
Yeah,
people.
It's acid rain from the fucking 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Just even times 10, coming down on
the
people of Tehran. It's so. And there's
you know,
zero reporting on it.
there's scenes of like just whole sections on fire, and yeah, it's horrifying.
And the sanctions have degraded their medical capacities as far as getting medical equipment. So
Yeah.
it's
And they're,
the effects are going to be even worse on the population.
and speaking of medical sector, they're also bombing hospitals. And the media, it's so like, it's not surprising, but it's still so angering that the media isn't even mentioning this shit. They aren't even bothering to do the pretense of, like, oh, maybe they bombed themselves or whatever, like they did in Gaza. They're just like, oh yeah, they're bombing. We don't care. That's not news. Like, hospitals are bombing up. Who gives a shit?
It's just like incredible how it's. I was thinking the other day. I was thinking about like my government class, and and in school, and all the bullshit they teach you, and they teach you that the media is supposed to be, what is it, the guard dog of democracy.
The fourth estate.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, it is so obviously just an aspect. It is very much just part of the state, and it's incredible how it just launders the lies. Like, there's really no critical media. It's as an overall institution, it just does not exist, and it functions as a wing of the State Department, and it's like, just wow. It's just. Yeah, I mean, they don't give a shit. They're not going to report.
If you turn on CNN, they're basically portraying the Gulf states as the victims of the war, and they're kind of acting like Iran is just irrationally attacking they're irrationally attacking Dubai for no reason whatsoever, and that's just
there was that
completely out of nowhere.
There's that obnoxious Jon Stewart sketch where their response to being bombed by Israel is bombing all their neighbors. Like shut the fuck. Like, you're trivializing the mass murder of over 1,000 people now.
Well, also, it's like, I know it's hard for him to believe, but Middle Eastern people can be rational, and it's actually a good tactic.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah,
like you're talking about it.
Yeah, there's many reasons why they would do that, and hopefully it will generate a regional crisis that will get the Gulf states to stop normalizing relations with the U.S. and Israel, because that trend is endangering regional stability.
Yeah. So now we can analyze what is the Iranian strategy. Why are they bombing the Gulf? And this goes back, I really believe, to the Gaza Hamas branch's strategy with October 7th, which is create a total regional war and therefore a global crisis, not just a global humanitarian crisis, but a real, proper global crisis, the one that actually affects the entire planet and destroys the pro-US status quo in the Middle East, an integral part of which is Israel and the Gulf regimes. And with those two shaken up or gone, by extension, the rest of the pro-US state system in the Middle East. Which goes back to Sykes-Picot. I really think they had these very profoundly revolutionary ambitions, and we're seeing it finally come to fruition with this war. Now, from Iranian strategic thinking, basically, there was this amazing quote of an anonymous Iranian official interviewed by the Financial Times, which is, "We had no choice but to escalate and start a big fire so everybody would see." And that's what the strategy is. It's finally embracing the fire that was lit in Gaza on October 7th, and expanding this into a regional wildfire, and through that a global fire. One that, and what does that mean in practice? It's far more than attacking Israel. It means attacking oil infrastructure, but this comes in phases. First is blocking the Strait of Hormuz and turning the Gulf into a war zone, and attacking these regimes which have been integral parts of the U.S. imperialist system, especially in the Middle East, but also globally. People don't really, I think, appreciate just how important the Gulf is to global Western imperialism. And I don't even mean in terms of fuel. That is obviously the blood of it, metaphorically, but the amount of money that the Gulf injects into the global economic system, that basically saved the West during the 1970s, during the stagflation crisis in the U.S. all this Gulf money coming in because of the oil embargo, the OPEC oil embargo in 1973. You have all these kingdoms, and they don't have the domestic markets to make use of this money. So they invested in Western banks, especially in the U.S., London, and Switzerland, and that money provides much needed. It was much needed funds for these Western governments to stabilize their economic systems, and that's been the financial undergirding of the world during the neoliberal period, of which we're in the final stages. Just from that alone, it's extremely important.
And I want to recommend the book Crude Capitalism by Adam Hanier.
It's so good.
Yeah, that book, I read it a couple months ago or so, and it really does perfectly explain the kind of architecture of the Gulf oil system and how the it shifts to the Gulf in the Cold War, and now that it really is the basis upon which so much of the Western capitalist infrastructure rests. And when that gets lit on fire, it really is going to just completely upturn the global system. And we're already seeing it happen before our eyes. But
yeah,
it's happening. I keep just saying to people, I just keep texting people, I can't believe it's happening.
No, literally, this is the big showdown that has been sort of prophesized and warned about, but now it's really happening. I can go on my phone and see it happening.
Exactly. And there are just these periods in history where there is interregnum moments where the kind of structure and architecture of global orders gets thrown into chaos, and everything can be changed and everything can be rebuilt in a new way. And
yeah, it's one other book I would recommend on top of Crude Capitalism, which again, really super great book, is Rise and Fall of OPEC by Garavini, Garavini. It's a really phenomenal history of OPEC, and it goes into the actual what was the 1970s oil crisis, the effects of it, all the investment, all this shit. It's really, those two books are great together. But yeah, no. So Iran's strategy is to attack these integral parts, the very lifeblood of American imperialism, and and create this global crisis, pretty much, where until you finally stop aggressing against us, and not just these temporary pauses, not just reduce the level of aggression, but definitively halt your aggression against Iran, we're going to burn the world. We're going to burn the world until you stop doing this. And we don't care how much pain it causes, because we're going through the pain already. We're going to make sure that the entire planet experiences this and understand that unless it stops you motherfuckers, this is going to go on. That's the strategy. It's embracing the accelerationist tendencies that were unleashed by October 7th. And it's embracing the global crisis as a central imperative. In fact, this is the strategy. It's not a byproduct. It's not a side thing. Expanding chaos is the strategy, at least as I understand it so far. And now, what has this meant in practice? Obviously, closing the Strait of Hormuz has had the effect of causing oil prices to fucking skyrocket to over $100 a barrel now, as now with trading in East Asia, and shooting rockets into the Gulf, particularly Bahrain and the UAE, which are and also Kuwait. Actually, I'm not sure if they've directly struck Kuwait, but Kuwait, all these states have been affected by the rockets because just so many are flying around. And of course, drones. Drones are another probably the most important tactic of the Iranian war machine, I think. But Bahrain and the UAE are bearing the brunt of it, and I think I haven't noticed that many people comment that Iran is targeting the Abraham Accords members in the Gulf and in the GCC. They actually haven't gone sicko mode yet on KSA, on Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and the reason for that is it's sort of an implied threat. They actually expressed their thanks to Saudi Arabia, which is, we appreciate that you haven't let your territory to be used against us. And the veiled message there is pretty much, you better keep doing this, or you see what's going to happen.
Well, I imagine that we can talk about the Ansar Allah, the Houthis, and maybe why they haven't directly entered yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably because they're waiting to see what Saudi Arabia does, right?
Yeah, no, I think like I posted basically, you know, there's like 4 scenarios, one of which is like they're just too scared, which is just impossible. We can dismiss that
No,
right
they're
out of
not.
hand.
Yeah, no, those guys ain't scared of shit.
Yeah, like so we can
No,
dismiss
they're
that out of hand. The other scenario is they're setting out to deter KSA. Like basically, if you stay out, we're gonna stay out.
No, I think it's that. I think
Yeah.
it's that. I think that they're probably even preparing.
Yeah, and that's the third scenario, which is they're preparing to respond to whatever Saudi Arabia does. And then the fourth scenario is like it's miscellaneous. You know, it's not covered by this. It's like some other thing. They're
Also, are we certain that Saudi Arabia is somehow not involved? I mean, they could be involved in other ways, I suppose, besides just allowing sorties or something like that.
I mean, reporting so far, there was that weird pre-war thing, and then like right after the war that started, where Saudi Arabia actually lobbied for it. But then there was another report, I think, like the New York Times said that, and Barack Ravid said it. Like Barack Ravid was the first one to say that Saudi Arabia is lobbying for a strike, and he was very adamant about it, which made me extremely suspicious.
Barack Ravid is a Mossad agent, so everything he says you have to assume is like
Mossad some sort of psyop. And
the
also,
the other thing is like, didn't they just capture Mossad agents trying to sabotage within? Yeah. I mean, of course, like we first heard about that from Tucker Carlson, so take it with a grain of salt. But it seems like it's been confirmed by other sources as well.
Yeah, no, it seems that Saudi Arabia, like they were privately not too down with this for obvious reasons, and now it seems that Israel is trying to basically force their hand, and we're sort of seeing this also with the UAE, where like Israeli journalists linked with the state are saying, "Oh, the UAE launched sorties against Iran," and the UAE is like, "We don't issue statements like that. Like if we had done it, we would have said it. So like, why are you speaking on our behalf?" It's this very bizarre. It seems as if they're trying to deflect Iranian anger onto the UAE, but I don't know why the fuck they would want to do that. I mean, I get it, like in the sense they don't like the UAE is still gleam, like they're still fucking stupid puppets. But at the same time, it's like why? Like these are your guys. And I mean, there was this epic ass on state media, like on Iranian state media, like this 20-minute program where they were like, we're gonna eliminate the idea of Dubai. We're gonna fucking, like Kuwait used to be the Dubai. Now we're gonna reverse that. Dubai will no longer be Dubai. It's like, I really want to see this.
No more macho labubu.
Yes.
I'm cool with that. Whatever.
Yeah, no, I no tears for Dubai.
What's this fucking like Dubai chocolate shit I keep hearing about?
It's this bizarre psyop by Emirati.
It's so weird.
Like state media essentially it's this really gross dessert. It's this confectionery like where you have chocolate and like a bunch of like pistachio paste as like the filling. It doesn't look very appetizing.
I've never had it and have no plan to try it.
But like I think it's meant to beautify their image amidst all the really horrible news from Sudan. But it's a bizarre. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but whatever. Keep going for it, guys. Focus on this. Don't focus on anything else.
Yeah.
So
it's the worst place. Like, god damn it,
dude. It's awful.
It's just like horrifying that like Syria is just like a pit of hell. Like all of these like Iraq, all these places like wonderful histories and culture, and their countries are just demolished. But fucking Dubai is just like doing great, and you can just like be a British influencer and live there and club there and have your Pakistani manservant, and it's just horrifying.
It is a spiritual abomination.
Yeah, it really is. It's like
it is, so like I think like the next phase now we can. So like what's happened over the past 10 days? There were a lot of assessments. Like they really like they began the war with a really epic flurry of like fucking 600 missiles. And those have steadily gone down. And a lot of people were thinking, or let me rephrase, Western media psyops were saying, oh, this is because like the launchers are being degraded and America's fucking putting in work. and we're going to win, which I saw absolutely zero reason to believe. I was like, this is not it. It's definitely because they're just choosing to not expend that many resources, and you could also sort of see this through the messaging, where the State Department and like Hegseth and all this shit, they were saying, oh, we're gonna, we'll achieve air supremacy in the next couple hours, and that turned into the next couple days, and the next few weeks, and then 6 weeks, and the next couple months. It's like they don't have air supremacy. They definitely have like huge advantages, but not supremacy. Like the Iranians are in fact hitting American drones and Israeli drones. Like we have photographic proof that they shot down a Hermes 900, which is like one of the main intel collection systems that the Israelis have. And I think we even have some evidence of them shooting down an MQ-9 Reaper drone. So they're shooting this shit down. Their short-range air defenses are definitely still operating and still pretty effective. Their long-range stuff is not, but I mean, whatever. That's kind of the name of the game when you fight the West. You don't really have those kind of systems. So the pace of missiles went down, and they started ramping up onto drones, because drones are really hard to intercept unless you have a very sophisticated anti-drone system. And basically the only place that has that is Ukraine, because they've been fucking dealing with these drones for the past 4 years. And they now have developed material know-how, and skills to actually handle this. The GCC does not have that expertise. They have no idea how to handle it. And the Iranians are also diversifying their drone tactics. They're using air drones, and they're also using suicide boat drones to directly hit tankers. Yeah, that's the other thing. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz, it isn't just some idle threat. They are actively attacking ships, and no fucking ship is going to make that risk to traverse the Strait of Hormuz. And even if a ship is willing to do that, insurers will not insure that ship. There is a huge financial infrastructure which does not want to fucking deal with this. And them not dealing with it impacts the entire global economy. If there's no ships fucking going through the Strait of Hormuz, carrying out tankers of oil, of crude oil and liquefied natural gas and sulfur, which is the key ingredient of basically the most common fertilizer on the planet, that shit doesn't go out. It stays in the Gulf. So you now have the Qatari, one of the chiefs there, saying, we're now force majeure, we're not producing shit. And Kuwait just said that as well. We're force majeure, we're not producing anything. Or we're massively ramping down production. Fucking the UAE has directly suffered attacks, and same with Bahrain. The UAE, they have this liquefied natural gas terminal on the other side of the Strait of Hormuz called Fujairah. I think so far the Iranians have limited themselves to attacking trafficking infrastructure, so ships and shit and ports. They haven't actually attacked oil infrastructure yet, and I think that'll be the next escalation, or it's the most likely to be the one. It's the most likely next escalation, and I think the ones that'll be targeted the most first, will be the Emiratis. I think they'll really fuck up Fujairah and other Emirati oil infrastructure, because we cannot have this producing and shipping stuff out. This is totally unacceptable. And you've been a belligerent this entire time. We're going to make you pay. That's what I think the logic is, and they have been very unsettled about that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think they've already attacked Iranian oil infrastructure, so
yeah, that's the other thing.
There's no reason for them not to do it now.
Yeah, I mean,
tit for tat.
It's that's what's been so reassuring about this versus every other exchange is that Iran is actually their messaging is totally on the ball. They're saying no more games, none of this bullshit. We are not going to take it. Arashi said that the Americans and the Israelis, they want a ceasefire. We're not doing that. No way. And I think it's worth explaining why. Basically, if they do a ceasefire now, it's just a repeat of the 12-day war. The Americans and the Israelis will get a few months to regroup, and fight again. And each time, Iran will be weakened. It only benefits the West to do the ceasefire. Iran doesn't get anything out of it. In fact, is weakened by it. So better just keep this war going and make the West suffer, and really teach them a lesson. So, and you have Arashi yesterday, in response to the attack on Iranian desalination plant, said, you've set the precedent, Iran didn't, which is a very unsubtle threat, saying we're going to hit desalination next. I don't think I'm not sure if they'll do it soon, but it was a clear message that this is now in our target bank. We're going to hit those, and they're not going to be hitting American desalination. I don't even think we have that. They're probably not going to be hitting Israeli desalination, but that's decent chance they do. The most likely target is Gulf desalination, which again means basically creating an even more insane social crisis within these Gulf societies, and therefore further disrupting the global economy. I think
they realize that they're not dealing with rational actors.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Iran are rational actors, and they have behaved as rational actors throughout the entire history. I followed everything they've done with the nuclear deal and everything, but the U.S. and Israel are not behaving as rational actors here.
Well, I think that Israel is.
Well, according to their own insane rationality, which is the pursuit of greater Israel.
Well, once again, and just regional hegemony. I think I've repeated this just over and over again. It's just that the only country they see that could actually pose as a regional rival is Iran, right? For the reasons that I've talked about before, which is its immense economic potential, right? So, and the fact that it's garnered quite a lot of prestige amongst Muslim nations as being, whether this is true or not, a pull against U.S. imperialism. So it has that massive economic potential, and it has that sort of ideological prestige. It really has, or is positioned to be, the regional power.
Yeah.
So I think in many ways, Israel, even if it weren't, the insane kind of millenarian ideology definitely contributes some ugly color to their plans, but insofar as they want to be a regional hegemon, there is rationality to them.
Yeah.
Conducting war.
Well, it's either we die fighting as slaves or die as slaves. Die fighting or die as slaves.
Well, yeah, for the Iranians, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, that's all that's they knew that. Why? At this point, the other thing that's incredible is how the U.S. has just shredded all of its diplomatic.
Yeah, it is so.
It's just. It's not. Of course, it's not like things were great, but it really has just shredded all of its diplomatic integrity. No one can trust them anymore.
How do you
take them?
How are you, as a third country, looking at this, and you see for the past 2.5 years, just with Iran, the U.S. has used diplomacy as a tactic of war, an active tactic of war.
Yeah,
it isn't just some it isn't even like a misuse.
Obama had already, vis-a-vis Iran, had already also poisoned whatever integrity the U.S. had, because, his method of applying pressure was economic sanctions, was economic warfare. So it's just sort of like the U.S. just further just shreds whatever diplomatic integrity it has, right? Because while it's negotiating with you, it will put you in a headlock and do whatever it wants, right? Whether it's military or economic. It's just unbelievable. What a bully country.
It's so...
What a bully country.
From, as you're saying, Jamil, from the Israeli perspective, this war makes sense. But the point is, this makes zero sense from the American perspective. There is no reason for the U.S. to be doing this, even from the most right-wing, pro-imperialist perspective. Unless you believe in this fucking millenarian Zionist project, there's no point to be doing something.
I think that Obama was kind of correct in his whole sort of attempt to geopolitically pivot the U.S. empire to Asia.
Yeah, for sure. That was the rational hegemonic response.
Yeah, this entanglement, this constant entanglement in the Middle East is just fucking it's just a disaster for the U.S. It's just a disaster.
What in I don't consider this an ideal world, but from a DC freak ideal perspective, the right move would have been JCPOA, keep that shit going forever, then Abraham Accords, everybody joins, then Iran joins, we fucking solve the Palestinian question that way. There's no two-state, there's nothing. It's over. And we fight China. That's it. That's the long and short of the plan.
It would have been very easy, as we've also talked about over and over again. It would have been very easy to peel Iran away from Russia and China.
Totally.
The Iranians were begging to normalize relations with the U.S. in order to have economic sanctions lifted. That was if anything, that's really been their number one goal politically for the last, like, who knows how long, basically since the sanctions were imposed. It would have been if you didn't have this fucking albatross of Israel, it would have been incredibly easy to peel off the Iranians.
I mean, I'll never forget when Netanyahu came to Congress under Obama and basically yelled at Obama and was like, "No, you're not going to do that." And liberals were disgusted by that. I mean,
because once again, he knows if Iran gets access to the international markets, if the economic sanctions are lifted, they're cooked. They're fucking cooked in terms of being.
Yeah, I just don't think I realize the significance of that at the moment. But now it's such a turning point, I think.
They should hire us to be imperialists. We'd be very good at it, to be honest. We'd be very good at it, you know. But no, it's like pathetic. It's just pathetic how stupid this is.
Somebody asked, speaking of Russia and China, will the remains of the Soviet military technostructure work in tandem with the Chinese and Iranian military technostructures to form an Asian military bloc to resist the USA? And no, I doubt it. Yeah,
because the butcher Putler he doesn't give a shit. Like he wants to win in Ukraine. He wants to do his medieval part, whatever. I mean, like, you know, I'm sort of half joking here. It's not that simple. But these people don't have ideologies. Because forming an Asian military bloc implies that, like, oh, there should be an Asian military bloc, you know, and that the U.S. is something to like meaningfully resist in like a coordinated form, which none of these people believe. No one believes that. China doesn't believe that. Fucking Russia is like sort of LARPing it with it, like your whole Eurasian thing, and Iran will probably believe. Like, I actually think like the current leadership of Iran would be very favorable to this, but like they don't have anything to offer to, or big enough to offer to Russia and China. Like China, like when the fucking
China doesn't give a shit. China is a paper tiger. Okay, honestly. No, but really, it is so terrified of military buildup and military competition. And okay, thank God, someone has to be rational in this fucking. But it's what block is it going? In what ways? What military block is it going to form? How is it going to resist the U.S., you know, militarily? I mean,
right. Like, I will say that there was a Russian ambassador in the UK who said that Russia is not neutral and that they are siding with Iran. I don't know what to make of that. Hold on, I
don't know. So the person had a follow-up. It doesn't have to be ideological in nature. It can be economic. I mean, like, but like economic is not like we have the Belt and Road or like New Silk Road project, but that hasn't led China to adopt any kind of like anti-U.S. political position. Like they don't get they early on in this war or like right before it, they were like they're chastising Iran for like causing too many troubles and like potentially risking, you know, the economy. It's like the only thing they care about is trade and money. And if that's the only thing you care about, then that means you support the U.S. Because endorsing the global economic structure means endorsing American hegemony. That's how hegemony works. It means
the financial infrastructure is centered around the U.S. It still is, and it's not clear how that's going to change. Like, you know, Russia had kind of been trying to create some sort of alternative financial structure and get other nations to join, but Russia doesn't have the clout to do that. It doesn't.
Yeah, and also like Russia just isn't that. It doesn't have the chops as an international ally. It's just not a good fucking partner. You don't want, you know, for better and for worse, mostly for worse. Actually, all of it for worse. But like the point is, the U.S., like, if you're an American ally, you actually can count on them to do some insane shit to support you.
Yeah.
Russia will just let its people fucking die. It'll rescue Assad, but that's about it. They'll rescue the very top. Overall project, they don't give a fuck. They are not a good ally.
You know, the Chinese rely. Well, from what I've heard, the Chinese rely quite a lot on Iranian oil. I thought it was like 25% of petrol or something, like, or crude or something like that. I mean, it's not insignificant, even having 10% of your energy affected, that's huge significance economically, right? So the Armenians, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is a fucking perfect example. Like the
Yeah, and
Iranian,
Iran does not have a defense agreement with Russia even.
yeah, and
So
this shit.
some
Like,
people have been suggesting maybe that China has been giving Iran certain
weaponry.
weaponry, basically, because of the level of sophistication of some of the weaponry. But I mean, I don't know enough about the technological capacities of the Iranians to say that maybe
there was also
themselves.
There was also some interesting reporting, I think, from Washington Post saying that Russia has been transmitting intelligence to the Iranians and like hence filling up their target banks, which, if true, would be like really meaningful. Like that's what an ally should be doing. But I don't know. That's like very off. That's not on brand for Russia. That'd be really out of character.
Yeah, I was reading this guy Andrew Korbiko. He's like a Russian nationalist guy, but he's kind of like always signals against AOR people who think that Russia is secretly on their side. And he was saying, well, it could be true, but this also could just be a way to put more pressure on Russia in the negotiations over Ukraine.
Yeah, so that's like a question mark to be TBD. We don't know.
Yeah.
It is worth investigating what sort of assistance or what the relations are between China and Iran, and whether and how China is assisting the Iranians. But it seems, for the most part, that they're going it alone. There certainly is no alliance that Iran has like the U.S. has with Israel, or Israel has with the U.S.
Right.
That's for sure.
And I mean, I think which ultimately, I think had there been such an alliance, I think Iran would have been much more reluctant to pursue such a radical course of action. And I think I've been I mean, last time we discussed this, and like you guys have like followed my account, I've been saying that like this kind of war needs to happen for at least a year, because it is the only thing that will actually spook the West. And that'll actually make the world ramp up the pressure to get Israel to fucking stop. Because people can stomach, like they may not be happy about it, but they can stomach images of mass murder. They cannot stomach oil reaching $150, $200 a barrel. That destroys the global economy. And again, there's this like annoying Marxist tendency or left-wing tendency to catastrophize and over-exaggerate a lot of stuff. This is not an exaggeration. This like actually will make the fucking planet melt. Like the global financial system cannot handle this kind of stress for that long. And Iran knows this and is like, we're going for it. And
yeah, I just, I certainly agree that like this, I mean, eventually some kind of confrontation was going to happen, and I just have no idea where this is going and how much this will escalate, and that's a bit terrifying.
It's like from
I'm mostly obviously worried about the Iranian people, right, and what they could potentially suffer. It's terrifying to think, to be honest. I mean,
it seems from so we can take Western aggression for granted. They're just going to keep being crazy. But so the in quotes mystery is, how does Iranian leadership view this stuff? And all of the messaging is like, we're going to keep escalating as long as we need to. Like the IRGC yesterday or the other day said that we can keep firing at the current pace for at least 6 months. And if this goes on for that's like what, September? Like if the Strait of Hormuz is closed that long, and if they start attacking oil infrastructure in that time, like, I don't know. I feel like that would cause something on the level of the Great Financial Crisis or the Great Depression, something really catastrophic to the global economy. And then I don't know. It can go anywhere from that.
Well, it would be like the 1973 oil shock.
Yeah.
But instead, in this time, it actually was kind of caused through conscious action in order to get at the West.
It's a very... I also don't like. I think as this gets worse, the Israeli position will also become way. it'll become less tenable in the U.S. as a political position, because you can basically anyone who's running on a Zionist ticket, you can just say this person supports your gas bills turning into like going up by a factor of 10, which is a really gross, like cynical way of framing how awful Israel is. But that's like the kind of shit that like would make Americans angry.
Yeah.
And like that could like feasibly win elections, and lead to like cuts to support to Israel. Oh yeah, this is another. I completely forgot about this. Just the effect on food prices will trigger uprisings. Like, yeah, that's another. Like, we're talking about energy and like the effect on the global economy, but sulfur is a key ingredient of like the most commonly used fertilizer in the world. And right now it's the spring. It's basically planting season. If this goes on for 6 months, that means farmers can't plant their shit for 6 months, and they can't use fertilizer, which means a lot of countries will have bread riots because people will be hungry. And again, who knows what that means? Hunger riots in a ton of different countries. Maybe it won't lead to governments falling, but it'll cause a lot of disruption. And I think in the U.S., I'm not sure if it'll affect the U.S. that much, because the U.S. is just like a big country. We're able to grow our own food. But I think the ambient pressure will probably cause food to become more expensive over in this country, and that'll be not good. That'll really, really upset people. And you can, again, directly trace, you can be like, the reason you're hungry right now is because of Israel. And this relates to the broader discussion we had earlier, which is like Zionism / Palestine is the omni cause. Like it wraps up basically every contradiction in politics today. Global reaction, all this shit. And with the defeat of Israel, it's like,
I mean, do we have a sense of how it's been very difficult to get a balanced view on quote unquote who is winning? I mean, obviously that's a complicated question, but
and there's a lot of psyops going around. People are saying that Iran is losing already, but
the main thing is like, often it's who's winning is calculated in terms of casualties, right? But then that has a lot to do with how much people are willing to tolerate casualties, and the U.S. and Israel don't tolerate casualties at all, whereas the Iranians are hard and are used to being killed. So
as far as like assessments of like who is winning, there's this really great analyst on Twitter. He has a book coming out about the axis of resistance coming out soon. Hamid Reza Azizi, HAMIDREZA, space AZIZI. He's been doing these like regular bulletins, just essentially roundups of key updates on the war. He should be on his last one was the 8th update. I think the next one will be the 9th, so it'll probably come out tonight, if it hasn't come out already. And his assessment, he's like been basically on the money. And I think like for me, like my assessment and from the information he's been relaying is that so long as the escalation strategy so long as there is escalation, Iran's winning. Because escalation hurts the West way more than it does hurt Iran. They can bear a lot more pain. I don't want to, like, that's a very euphemistic way to describe people dying in horrible ways. But we should never, we shouldn't discount that.
No, I mean, some of the people are people who lived through the Iran-Iraq war. They dealt with incredible amounts of death.
So like as a society, like they're just able to withstand this kind of severe pressure, whereas the global economy cannot handle this kind of pressure, let alone the U.S. and Israel having to face real deal war.
No, they're just so used to slaughtering people and having very little consequence for it, besides the, I mean, basically just the inconvenience of having to go to some fucking bomb shelter and do dances to Tel Aviv, like fucking music, Tel Aviv rave music or whatever. So, whatever. They're not actually used to suffering.
So basically, I'd say like since the escalation ladder has been going on, and there's like obviously there's some degradation. I'm not going to be like one of those idiots who says there's no degradation in Iranian capabilities. Just there has to be, given the amount of airstrikes going on.
Yeah.
But the quality of it is nowhere. I'm really skeptical that's at the level that the Western media is claiming it is. So basically, like essentially, like so long as Iran has the control of the escalation ladder, which it does so far and has since the beginning of the war, they are in quotes winning. And if they can keep this going for several months, they will be in a very strong position just politically. There's two ingredients to this: escalation, continued escalation, even if it's at a slower pace, and regime coherence and integrity. If there's no splits within the government, if everybody is essentially aligned on all the core stuff, they're good.
I mean, at this point, they can't. No one can split. Makes no. They can't.
Trump killed the people that they thought would split.
They wanted to cohere the regime, then they did it.
That's the other thing. Like,
the regime, they cohered it.
Apparently, the strike on Khamenei killed a bunch of people who would have been amenable to just capitulating to the U.S., which is like another thing of like this strategy. Even our own zogged up ass war is being sabotaged by Zog's fucking bloodlust.
Right, but I think honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Israelis wanted that to happen, so that there's no way that Trump could basically do a Venezuela-style regime change and have an easy end to the war.
But even then, like, wouldn't a Venezuela-style thing be good for them? I have no idea. These people are so
but it's also seeming like the Venezuela thing was like, it almost seems like the Venezuela, like, what the fuck has actually changed? Just Maduro is gone. That's it.
Well, Cuba's not getting oil anymore.
Okay, that's true. That's
the very big
deal.
Oh, I heard that they also had like diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia and the Gulf. Okay, so maybe they did affect it, to be honest.
Yeah, they did.
The big thing is the Cuba stuff. Everything else is like kind of whatever.
But what's it called? I mean, they really. The other thing that I had heard is that Khamenei was the guy who signed a fatwa to prevent nuclear armament.
Yeah, that was his.
Basically, had religiously forbidden the enrichment of uranium in a way that allowed them to. So, the U.S. has also just ensured that the hardline IRGC members like won the argument. Like, it's just incredible. No, it's so stupid. They really
like. I mean, Khamenei. On the one hand, it's insane and obscene that the U.S. would kill another head of state. Like, this is literal barbarian shit. Like, you didn't do this in antiquity. On the other hand, they just got rid of the one person who was actively sabotaging so much of like Iran's strategy. Like, Khamenei was just an objectively awful leader. Like, he was so indecisive. He just was not a good leader. Like, so many of his decisions just fucked over Iran. And now with him gone, you have the epic ass Ali Larijani, Ghalibaf, and this other guy, not Arashi. He's not in the inner circle, but essentially, you have this epic ass regime which is now getting shit done and is like standing on business. The recent Pezeshkian episode is really illustrative. He like puts out this really goofy ass statement like, we're willing to de-escalate with our neighbors if they don't attack us, and Trump's dumbass says like, we're winning, the Iranians will be crushed, and internally the hardliners were already pissed off, and then Trump made them even angrier. And I'm editorializing here, but like basically Larijani and a couple other guys like went to Pezeshkian and said, shut the fuck up, reverse that statement, or like amend it. We're not doing de-escalation. We're standing on business and we're fucking fighting. Like, that's basically.
They really have no other choice. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, no, like.
Yeah, they don't. They have no other choice.
They have no other choice.
Like, and they haven't had any other choice since at least. I mean, realistically, since October 7th. Like, being real, this is what should have happened. Like right after October 7th. And I think that's the one thing that makes me like genuinely very angry. Aside from the assault on the Iranian people. Is that had this happened in weeks or months immediately after October 7th, Gaza could have been spared. Now, there is the valid argument that the entire Middle East could have been thrown into the apocalypse. And,
what? It's not already like.
But that's the other. That's what I was about to say. That's as if that didn't already happen. Like
you have like an Al Qaeda fucking regime in Syria, which is like killing Alawites and all kinds of minorities. You have a barely functioning like fucking failed state in Iraq. You have like Jordan, which is just Jordan. Lebanon has been bombed on and off like for who knows how fucking long. It's already hell. What the hell?
Yeah, like that's the other argument. And like even if we want to restrict our definition to apocalypse, the apocalypse still came, but it was localized to Gaza. And like we saw, like I don't think it's worth trading the rest of the planet for Gaza. Like I don't think like that's not a thing that we should endorse.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So like it's had this happened, and again, there's many arguments of like what if had Iran done this like back then, there wouldn't have been there would have been a lot of domestic resistance, and like, I guess, but at the same time, it's like I don't think it would have been. It would like the state's legitimacy is at its worst in this current war. Look at how effective the state is. I just like realistically in a big war, you're able, and if the opposition is stupid like it is in Iran, then you can just fucking do what you want. And my biggest fear was that once this war began, was that the Mossad and the Pahlavi movement would be able to just like take over, but that has not happened at all. Apparently, like the Mossad doesn't even have it. I'm so shocked that the Mossad, at least so far, hasn't set off any operations. It really seems they blew their load.
I think that the protests, I mean, as ugly as the repression seems to have been,
it was effective. It
was effective in taking care of some of those Mossad motherfuckers.
So like that shit, like they blew their load in the 12-day war, then like the subsequent months with all the weird ass explosions and shit, and then like with the protests in January and the agitation there, like the Pahlavist Mossad agitation. To make it even worse, as a side note, I think like blaming the violence of the protests entirely on Mossad and nefarious conspiracy element is fucking stupid. There are a lot of people in Iran who are just dumb and are willing to do stupid shit to fucking like fight the Mullah regime. So it's important not to discount that, but still, there were definitely like foreign elements making it even worse. The repression worked. Killing a couple thousand people for like 2 days basically scared everybody and was like, look, we will fuck you up if you resist what we're doing. And if you're going to make things even worse, we're going to like go even harder. And there's been no protest. People are spooked. They're like, okay, yeah, we're not into this. And naturally, the Israeli bombing is worsening whatever good, affinity or appeal there was amongst the public.
Yeah, I think after Israel started bombing, I think people realized, our government, we have issues with it, but this is not what we wanted. This is far worse.
This is I don't want to be
killed 150 schoolgirls like on day one.
That was so like I cannot believe that there's barely any fucking media coverage. They didn't justify it. They didn't fucking explain it away like they usually do. They just, like, the U.S. murdered 150 kids. They bombed a school twice.
Yeah.
And no one gave a fuck. No one cared.
They've been double tapping civilian sites, and they double tapped a fucking kid's school. I mean, it's just
and no one gives a shit. Who cares?
Barbaric. Yeah. I mean, imagine the reverse, right? You would not hear the end of it for who knows how long.
Oh yeah,
right? It was 20,000 9/11s.
Yeah, like
yeah. I think it's clear to me that I've never been like some big fan of the IR of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I've never been like some big communist, but right now it's clear that we do not have to like complain that this government doesn't meet our standard of human freedom when we oppose this.
No,
it's just not worth even talking
about.
Not
even worth debating. It's not even worth debating.
Yeah,
right?
It's like you see these left comms are going on about like, oh, we need to do revolutionary defeatism. Like,
shut the fuck up. Who cares?
We need to take power, and What are you
What are you
talking
talking
about? Are you in reality right now? Like,
I mean, I also think it's just so insane that, like, for many Marxists, the only points of reference as far as foreign affairs go is World War I and World War II. Like,
yeah,
guys, it has been a long ass time. Please move on.
Also, like, you know, and I was thinking about it the other day, like, because I know people are going to bring up, oh well, the Germans and the Russians were not on equal footing. The Germans were vastly superior militarily, et cetera, economically, and yet Lenin still asked for revolutionary defeatism in
it's just
Russia.
not the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
There's
I
two
agree with you.
colonial empires fighting over their share of the colonial loot. This is a
That's-
subjugated country that's been sanctioned to the hilt, fighting for its life against
Yeah.
this regional power
Global
and this
Hitler.
global hegemon that wants to reduce it to rubble and reduce it to a pure tributary colony that has no sovereignty whatsoever. It was
Yeah, I
nothing
mean,
but a pile of corpses.
basically, Russia was a colonial power that decided to try to play the game and ended up getting its ass whooped. It's not the same thing
Yeah.
as a regional power being under siege by the global hegemon and facing potential annihilation.
Like, I have people trying to tell me that like Iraq is like an Iranian neo-colony and that just...
And I'm fucking somebody who like has lots of criticisms about Iranian policy in Iraq.
Yeah.
Like, this is like one of the big things I write about. It's like, that does not fucking matter. If there's no Middle East, we can't solve like the problems of Iraq and Iran. Like,
also, it's not as if, like, yeah, we were saying, it's not as if they had some munificent like place in Iraqi society, but they also in some ways were a stabilizing force.
yeah,
And also they have, you know, it's not absurd if you're going to be like an international realist or whatever, that they have some stability on their goddamn border, right? Like, them intervening in a country right across their border is not the same thing as the US pulverizing the Middle East in order to try to have control or access to its oil. It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, it's so Killer Crowd has brought up the example I had in mind, which is like Ethiopia was a jillion times more reactionary and malicious than Iran is now. Like, Ethiopia was just an insanely reactionary state by any
I
standard.
think they still had slavery, right?
They still, like, the emperor had fucking slavery, had his own slaves.
I think that there was still slavery. And in fact, some of the Italian fascists and stuff like that tried to argue that it was a progressive war because
literally,
like, yeah. So
they even like the Ethiopians, they even, not the Ethiopians, the Italians, they even like tried to do this like weird Somali nationalist thing, like, we're gonna free the Somalis from like Abyssinian like reign, and that's like they had all this shit fucking cooked up. I wonder what that sounds like now. Like, so that doesn't mean you fucking side with fascist Italy. Like, you side with the colonial subject, or like the would-be colonial subject. It's so, oh my god.
Yeah, no, I think it's Iran is waging a national liberation struggle that has a progressive democratic content.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think that's undeniable at this point, especially because this war effort is tearing up the U.S. arrangement of the Middle East, and I could see this whole thing ending with the U.S. military bases gone.
That's out. Like, if we want to do the whole Marxist thing of like, you know, defeatism, blah blah blah, which I'll be real, I think the whole like concept of revolutionary defeatism is just stupid. It's just too confusing to even like really be useful. But that aside, that should be our line. America should lose and get its fucking ass kicked.
Well, then you're a defeatist.
I mean, that is revolutionary.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Then you're a defeatist. Listen, I know that. I think the main thing is that it can sound politically stupid in the sense that you have to go to Americans and be like, we need to lose. You know what I'm saying? But it's true, right? What it is we want our ruling class to eat shit in colonial endeavors. That's really what it is. That's the thing that I find always very like fascinating about discussion of international politics. Like, I'll hear like, and I do it sometimes, but I'll hear Donald be like, we did this. Donald, you didn't do shit. Okay. You didn't do anything. You might in some sense benefit from being in the belly of the beast and not getting bombed, but we didn't do anything. We don't have any fucking power in deciding this shit.
I mean, I do think though that like you can't just like opt out of your responsibility of like.
No, we have a responsibility to fight our ruling class to the hilt. But at the same time, this is also like very much ruling class foreign policy.
You are right that we had no say in this happening, and that like we have no ability to like.
I don't know. Like there's like then the argument like like the reason it got to this point is that we never made them pay for like Iraq and Afghanistan. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
blah, blah.
yeah.
Like I mean, I think like getting into that like as a whole, like we all do bear some.
We do
level of
bear some responsibility, but this is, I'm sorry, this is not my war. And
No, I mean like
the thing
no.
is that the vast majority of people in the U.S. also don't want this war, so it's kind of like
Yeah, like I get what both are saying, but like it's just like what the fuck, like what do we do?
Well, I mean, like what? Yeah, exactly. What do? We build a socialist movement that takes this shit seriously. What else can we do?
Like it's
Right?
yeah.
Like what else can we do? I'm not gonna go. We're supposed to fucking like build like make nitroglycerin, like Fight Club.
Just become a terrorist.
Yeah, like what the hell does that do? Like we can moralize all we want, but at the end of the day, that's all we can do is try to build a strong socialist movement that takes anti-imperialism seriously. Because once again, like you have to explain to people that this is the war of the ruling class in order for them to divide the riches of the world.
Which I mean, like I guess like goes back to the whole like Zionist parastate thing. Like this very much just literally is a fucking insane parochial product, some like transnational uber reactionary Zionist class fraction, and it's like mass movement have just hijacked American hegemony to do this stupid shit. It's like mass murder for its own sake.
And it's hilarious seeing Trump just like freaking the fuck out, like he has no idea where this shit is going. They have no idea what they're doing.
No, it is so sloppy.
And I mean, Rubio actually kind of did admit what happened.
Yeah.
Basically,
He did,
which is that Israel wanted the war, Israel started the war, and then America was forced to jump in. Like at least at the top level of decision making. I'm sure that there are people in the U.S. state that have been pushing for it for a very long time, but
even people like John Bolton are saying this is not a good idea. So,
Yeah, I mean that could be a case of him just being mad that he's not leading it.
The most bloodthirsty ghoul. Like you have like the Genghis Khan of the U.S. State Department. Like he's like, nah, no good. I don't want this. That's
someone in the comments, there's a couple of comments back, asked about Afghanistan and Pakistan. If you could put that on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think that like the U.S. provoked. This is just like some really stupid shit. Like the summary of that is essentially, Pakistan has not been able to deal with its own insurgency, that was the Pakistani Taliban, and since the Pakistani Taliban are like very closely affiliated, or like essentially like an offshoot of the Afghan Taliban, they're like blaming Afghanistan for this mess, and they're just doing warmongering shit for not being able to solve their own domestic problems, and like I think it's basically unrelated to Iran. As for like the Shiite population, Iran didn't recruit from like Shiites in Afghanistan. It recruited from Shiite Afghans in Iran for Liwa Fatemiun, the Afghan militia. So like if it were to do that, it would be doing it from Iran. But they've also just deported a shitload of Afghans anyway. So this is just like a totally separate thing. Although I can see why someone would think it's related because just timing. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing is so. What the fuck? What do we do? Like now?
I feel like we need to do something, but protesting just feels weak, and I don't want a Fed post or sound like a
idiot. Yeah.
So I think Kilgore makes a point that as the economic situation gets worse, maybe the trade union bureaucracy will be.
Yeah, sure. The U.S. Yeah,
I don't know about that, bro.
Yeah,
but
sorry, not to be rude, Kilgore. I love you, bro, but that's probably.
I really doubt that.
Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I think if
that's what should happen, my friend. That's what should happen.
It is what should happen.
But that's the U.S.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like the Pakistani government deported nearly 1 million Afghans. It's just, I mean, as a side note, I really like, the nation state system just needs to be totally abolished in every single form. Borders, passports, all this shit needs to be completely destroyed. It is so pernicious globally because what you have is like third worldism, real life third worldism is just these shitty fucking nation states victimizing their neighbors and like minorities. That's what it is. That's what it actually is. National sovereignty does not mean, for like anyone who actually says it, like any politician in the third world that says national sovereignty, they're not talking about fighting the West. They're talking about brutalizing minorities and expelling anyone who is not a so-called citizen. That's what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know. On this point, I think Algeria has actually been decent with its minorities.
I mean, all right, man. Like, well, we don't. Not all of us get to have nice things like a country that is not evil.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's done. It's there were serious concerns with like cultural oppression of Kabyle, like certain minority groups, but finally, like now the Kabyle have the right to like teach their language in schools, and there's been issues in Mozambique. There's been issue. You know where there's been serious tensions is with like Amazigh or nomadic tribes. That has been really bad.
Yeah.
That's been bad. That's been bad, to be honest. There's been war, but I haven't heard about like mass internment or things like that. So,
well, it's like everybody reads Frantz Fanon, and they read like the stuff about violence and how violent, anti-colonial struggle, and how that activates the masses to take up the national flag and unite against the colonial oppressors and all that stuff. But they don't read like the part where nationalism then becomes a problem.
Yeah, well, there was progressive content to Algerian nationalism in the moment in which it emerged. The thing is it had also, it's not like all of a sudden Algerian nationalism was a thing in 1954 when the revolution began, right? But it was a slow process. Actually, it's a very interesting history, and in fact, a not insignificant part of that history is the involvement of the Third International and the formation of the Third International and the splits in the French Socialist Party. But that's another conversation worth having. But at this point, Algerian nationalism, it's very unclear what it's kind of unclear what it means anymore, to be honest.
Right.
People are so demoralized in Algeria. The new generation doesn't give a shit about all of the revolutionary rhetoric. They just see the state as just like this cabal of thieves and just like plutocrats and incompetence and geriatrics and all kinds of things. So yeah, it's not clear what the progressive content is of Algeria.
Well, I think that's kind of what Fanon's point was, is the progressive content is eventually extinguished and it just becomes a way for this new national bourgeoisie to justify its own rule.
It's been pretty exhausted, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing, like again, we can make these like direct comparisons because unfortunately we just have real life instances. Like national sovereignty in Iran is very concrete. It's like just like Western Israeli Zionist American aggression stops and they finally get to live in peace and like develop their country and just be normal and like enjoy life. That's what national sovereignty means there, and it's a very concrete like, okay, this is good, we should support it, absolutely. But like in fucking like so many other states, like national sovereignty is just this bullshit concept that doesn't mean anything except victimizing minorities or some like weird like mumbo jumbo ideology.
What is this? What Algeria needs to stop oppressing the French? What is it? What you better be ironic, okay? You better be.
You're getting trolled, son.
Yeah, probably being trolled. Yeah,
I support. I mean,
they know how to troll you.
we gotta support. Someone mentioned Idi Amin in chat. I totally rock with Idi Amin. Like,
oh, that's crazy. That's crazy, man. That's your Chomsky moment with the Khmer Rouge.
Yeah. I mean, because like, here's the thing. Idi Amin was really funny. He had a lot of aura.
Yeah.
So Mahmoud Mamdani's newest book is about Idi Amin.
It's really good.
The ultimate man of aura on the African continent is Muammar Gaddafi. That guy had real swag. Okay,
he did.
Real
but here's
swag.
the thing.
Did I tell you guys that my grandfather is actually like very good friends with Gaddafi? Actually,
what?
Yeah, like very good friends actually, and I have some wild stories. Like,
was he cool?
Was Gaddafi cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was also apparently like really like Majnun, like really crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's pretty apparent.
Okay, I'll tell you guys one story and I don't know if it's true. Okay, but this is because this is my grandfather and he could tell.
It's probably true.
But okay, so my grandfather is hanging out with like Gaddafi, and he's in his like Bedouin tent, which was very nice, but it was a tent. He's hanging out, and all of a sudden, Gaddafi starts going off to like the people around him, like, "Oh, this Saudi king, curse that man! He makes people bow before him, and he makes everyone act like a dog around him." And my grandfather's kind of like, "Okay," and he sort of keeps his tongue, and everyone leaves, and then my grandfather confronts him. He says, "You're giving shit to the Saudi king that people are like bowing to him and whatever. But I saw your general kiss your hand. So what are you? I'm confused by your stance here." And apparently, like Gaddafi just starts going off, like coming up like just all of these reasons why he's not shitty like the Saudi king, and just making a terrible case for himself, basically. So my grandfather is like, "Okay, well, okay, sure, okay, you're right. So he goes to bed, and the next day, my grandfather, he lived in Paris at the time. So because of the blockade, he couldn't take a trip. He couldn't take a plane directly to Tripoli, from Tripoli to Paris. He had to go to Tunisia, and then from Tunisia, he would take the plane to Paris. So he's driving, and he has a guy driving him, and then all of a sudden he hears, and he looks out the window, and he's like, "Oh shit, it's a helicopter." And the helicopter comes down, and a military guy comes out. He says, "The colonel would like to see you." And so my grandfather's like, "Oh shit, dude, I'm fucking done. I'm cooked." So he goes back to Tripoli, and he goes to see like Gaddafi. And then all of a sudden, Gaddafi starts re-explaining why he's not like the Saudi king. He starts trying to explain himself, and my grandfather's like, "This fucking guy, I swear to God." So yeah, that's I have some more, but that's one of the stories.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that is honestly kind of how I've always imagined Gaddafi,
yeah, he was definitely like a chaotic guy.
Majnoon is such a great way to describe him.
Yeah, for sure. Like he's really like he my grandfather wrote a so Gaddafi wanted to create a like an epic kind of 6-hour movie on Italian colonization of Libya, and so he hired my grandfather to write the scenario, to write the script. And my grandfather wrote, like, this thing was a fucking tome. It was like a 600 page, like it was like that. It was a fucking tome. And he wrote the thing, and then Gaddafi never made it.
No. Is the script still around?
It must be, yeah. It must. I should find it. I should honestly find it. Yeah. Yeah. Rest in peace to my grandfather. Yeah. But yeah, that's Gaddafi was apparently like quite the character. So, but anyways, Libyan nationalism had basically no content because there's like 8 people in the country. So, it's like it was like very much like Libya is very bizarre in that way, right? Like the Libyan independentist movement was because it's just such an like, I think there's like 8 million people in this massive territory.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they're nationalist. In quotes, nationalist movement against the Italians wasn't even like ideologically nationalist. I'm sure in the sense of like they were like, we are Arabs, we don't want to be ruled by foreigners. But like the actual ideological content of it was like Islamism. It was the Senussia,
that actually was. Yeah, that actually was.
And like the early stages of it. I mean, like the Senussia, there's like a lot, like this author, I think Ali Ahmida. His last name is Ahmida. Has written really like interesting stuff about the Senussia, and like it was very, like so many anti-colonial Islamic movements, it's like very proto-jihadist, and like its structure and like how it functioned. Like you can see a lot of like modern jihad in them and like other movements from that time. But speaking of like Don, you mentioned Mahmoud Mamdani's new book.
Yeah.
What is it called again?
Hold on.
I read it actually. It was fuck.
Yeah, he's Slow Poison.
Slow Poison. It's really good. It's a really great sort of like somewhat autobiography / analysis of Ugandan history. And despite being personally victimized by Idi Amin, he's weirdly, I wouldn't say positive, but he does kind of defend Idi Amin
That's you know that Mamdani is going to eat shit for that.
They've already tried going after him for it. They're going after his wife right now too for like liking some post on October.
Yeah, no one cares.
Like, yeah, but no one cares. So Iran is killing children. I mean, no, Israel is killing Iranian children. And, sorry, don't quote me on that.
Someone's gonna clip that.
Yeah, don't clip that, please. Don't clip that.
Wild gesticulations. Iran is killing children.
Yeah.
Neocon Don over here. No, that's
that should be your handle. But anyway, more seriously, like, and the book is really good. Basically, he tries to analyze the social products of like Amin versus Museveni, and like Amin's project was black nationalism, hence why it targeted Asians, like South Asians, but it was like black nationalists, like it was like an actual nationalist project in that sense, even if it was quite ugly, or it could be. But Museveni's whole thing is destroying the nation and like an even more reactionary, just like fanning of fake tribal identity and shit, which is another thing. Like so much of, I guess we've now pivoted into this like nation state discussion. Maybe we shouldn't go too long, but my comment here is like so much of a lot of like nation state social projects are just leaning into these like hideous parochial identities. That like because so many of these nation states are fake as fuck, they have to lean into these like even more these like so-called real identities like tribe and shit, which are also fake as fuck, but like have been somewhat legitimized by history.
Well, I mean, the other thing is like so many national liberation movements were influenced by communism and socialism, right?
Yeah.
And it's like minus that, all of the pernicious aspects of nationalism just take over. If you don't have some kind of, and this is sort of an oxymoron, I guess, like universalist nationalism, then all of just the worst aspects of blood and soil nationalism or tribalism just come to infect.
Yeah.
Just come to dominate, right? And that's what we're seeing. I mean, it's just like what is a third world nationalism minus socialism or communism or anti-imperialism? It's nothing. It's just, it's worse than hollow. It becomes pernicious.
Yeah.
So I think that's a major, I think that, rather than kind of shitting on, I'm not saying that you're doing this, but, rather than kind of shitting on the status of like saying that it was some inevitability that third world nationalism reactionary, I think it's important to recognize that there's that political struggle to have. And
of course.
It's up to us to kind of push a more universalist understanding of these nationalisms as progressive moments in a greater evolution.
For sure, and
I think they are, and they can be.
Yeah, it's a very, I do, and like I'm bringing it back to the core discussion here. I think if and hopefully when Iran wins and like actually basically breaks the global financial system, then and with that is able to break Israel, hopefully this really does initiate a new period of like progressive political dominance, so that there is some like real, because like we like for the past we're in the worst of the so-called end of history. Like this is the darkest period, at least of my lifetime, and I remember before all of this thinking that the peak of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were the worst things I'd ever seen. This is way worse. And I'm just hoping that this is.
Yeah, this has been a nightmare moment politically. To be honest, it's just a nightmare. It's really a nightmare. Like it's.
And hopefully, once it's over, there is something good at the end of it. Not just like the bad parts are gone. Like there's an active good that is like in progress at that point. But
inshallah, honestly.
Yeah, I really hope so.
To be determined.
I can't do
it. It's not good. This is a good question.
Do y'all think there is a genuine chance the monarchies in the Gulf states get overthrown?
I think it's the thing. Like so far, the biggest agitation has been in Bahrain.
Yeah.
And for some context for people who may not know, Bahrain, like the ruling family, is this quite sectarian Sunni family, and the population of Bahrain is mostly Shiite.
Yeah.
And like the structure of Bahrain is a very deeply sectarian project. Like I think like one person before October 7th, it may have actually been some in Nuked West on Twitter, that like Bahrain is one of the few countries in the Middle East to have a social structure similar to Israel. Like that's just how reactionary it is. And like something like what's come up, and again to emphasize this, like something that's come up in my research of jihadism is the repression of the Bahraini Arab Spring in 2011. And I've seen Salafi jihadists, like real Salafi jihadists, praise that as like this is a good system of repressing Shiites. Like that's how fucking extreme this government is.
Wow.
So now there's obviously people rebelling, given that the government's eating shit. But the thing is, there isn't an organized opposition in Bahrain or any of these other places. The opposition in so many of these countries have been destroyed. So for the time being, I think for much of the foreseeable future, it'll just be this leaderless kind of civil unrest, which will obviously like disturb and kind of shake up the governments of these monarchies, but it won't overthrow them. I think for something like that to happen, it would take a lot more for the monarchies to fall.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a good place to end it for today.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob, for coming on. It's always a pleasure having you.
Always glad to be on, guys.
Yeah. And, like and subscribe to our YouTube or wherever, and share with your friends, share with your family. Check out Cosmonaut Mag. Check out the magazine. Actually, hopefully we will have Rob's piece out soon enough. It's going to be very interesting. Also, if you can, check out our Patreon, subscribe. Please think about donating or maybe buying some merch, which you can find on our website. And that's anything to add, Donald?
Well, everyone keep your eyes on the oil markets, because that's a good way to track how insane this crisis is getting.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have to add for now. But yeah.
I'd echo that. I think we can end it there. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.